On today's Newsmakers, a surge in revival in America, Joe Kennedy declares victory, and is religious freedom on the chopping block? Coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines every week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable figures. On today's Newsmakers, we're starting the show with a conversation all about spiritual revival. Pastor Mike Signorelli of V1 Church joins us to talk about the Domino Revival. This is his new film that explores the many spiritual resurgences taking America by storm. Let's welcome Mike Signorelli to the show. Mike Signorelli. So revival, you and I have talked quite a bit in the past about revival, these moments that appear to be really unfolding all over the country from Asbury down the line. You do a lot of preaching. You see this stuff firsthand. There was just a mass baptism earlier this summer, 4,500 people baptized by Greg Laurie and other pastors. I mean, we keep seeing these things happening again and again. What do you make of it?
Yeah, Billy, that's a great question. People are revolting against this new world, this new America, the new ideals, the new definitions of things, and they're finding it's not working, and what appears to be freedom is actually not freedom at all. And so right now, I think this revival is connected to people rejecting what's been crammed and shoved down our throats. They're saying, I need something else, and they're finding it through Christ.
Yeah, well, and that brings us to the Domino Revival, which is your documentary hitting theaters in October 24th. And this film, it's something you and I have talked offline quite a bit about. What is the movie about? Kind of take us through sort of the trajectory of what you're trying to accomplish through it.
Yeah, let me just start by saying I know that everybody watching right now does not agree on everything theologically and doctrinally. And so what I didn't do is I didn't make a movie just for Pentecostals or just for charismatics or just for Baptists. I really attempted to make a movie about the gospel, because what we all should agree on within Orthodoxy is the gospel, and that Christ, the Son of the living God, came, died for our sins, and on the third day rose again. And this movie is literally about me and several people from different denominations and different streams that are all preaching the gospel.
You're able to come together, you mean, with people from different denominations?
Yeah, well, you know what I did? I intentionally complicated it. I got, if you look at the movie poster, you're going to see a lot of people. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want any one person to be able to dismiss this film. And so I need everybody watching to kind of, lay aside your preferences for a moment. Let's make it about the gospel. And let's let the Holy Spirit lead us into this next, what I believe is an awakening.
Yeah. Now you in the movie, you're dealing with a lot of topics that, obviously there are discussions and debates about, right, in theological circles. At the end of the film, when you get through it and audiences, when the curtain closes, essentially, what do you want the audience feeling in their hearts?
Yeah, well, first of all, no, I'm going to give some really amazing news right now. I was actually given an incredible opportunity by Fathom when the last scene from the movie's over. Instead of the credits rolling, it actually is going to, on October 24th, when the movie premieres, it's going to immediately go into a live stream that's going to be simulcast across America, where we do a 25-minute revival service and give people in the theaters the opportunity to respond to the gospel. It's going to be insane. We're going to turn thousands of theaters into tabernacles in the wilderness, as I'm calling it, like mobile tent revivals. And I believe we're going to see suicides canceled. I believe people are going to surrender drugs and paraphernalia and addictions and go home and throw it away. And most importantly, I believe many, many new disciples are going to enter the kingdom. So that's my heart and my prayer, that people come away from this saying it's not about celebrities. It's not about influencers. It's not about, these special upper echelon Christian people who are seminary trained. This is just about saying yes to Jesus. He uses the foolish thing to confound the wise. And I got a whole movie full of fools that said yes. And you're going to see what God did through their life. And then the question's going to be asked, are you ready to let him do that through your life as well?
Yeah, and so when you look at this film, you know, and you look at the contents of it, obviously you and I have talked many times in the past about evil, about the demonic realm, about deliverance. How much of the film kind of gets into some of that?
Yeah, my biggest attempt again was to make this about Jesus Christ. But let me just tell you, wherever you see the true Jesus, and listen, not the Republican Jesus, not the Democrat Jesus, not the hipster Jesus, not the New Age Jesus, not the Jesus of Eastern religions, but where you see the true resurrected Jesus, you will also see signs, miracles, wonders, healings, and deliverances. So I did not make a movie about deliverance. I made a movie about Jesus, but wherever there's Jesus, there's going to be deliverance. So we do show it. We do mention it in the film. It's not a focal point. Again, Christ is the focal point. Same thing with healing. I was saying this, but there's 10 lepers that Christ healed and only one came back to make him Lord of their life. And so the reality is there's a lot of people seeking out Christ for healing, but the movie isn't just, hey, get a healing, it's receive the healer. It's not just a, hey, get a deliverance, it's receive the deliverer. Because where you have Christ, you have all that other stuff as well. So it is a part of it, but it's not the focus.
No, that's great to hear. And I think, when you look at healing, you mentioned that just as we sort of round out our conversation here, you have been all over the world. In fact, as I'm talking to you, you're not in America right now. You're out doing revivals and events. But when you look at healing, you've seen so much. What have been some of the most remarkable things you've observed?
Yeah, and I want to challenge somebody's faith right now. Here's the thing, 100% of the people that you don't pray for won't be healed. I mean, and for me, I used to be an atheist. So every single time I pray for healing in somebody's life, I think to myself, oh no, I don't want to give them false hope. But the reality is I'm not the healer. And so some people I pray for aren't healed, but many people are, and Christ receives the glory. And so I say that, just to encourage somebody right now. Now, in the film, we're going to show some dramatic moments that were caught on footage, not just by me, but by other ministers. I mean, we really have had people come out of wheelchairs. We've had people, one woman was actually on staff at a local church with MS, which, as you know, MS does not have any cure as of right now, medical cure. And I prayed for her, and she has medical verification that the lesions in her brain and the MS is completely gone. And those are things that I can't explain. We've had multiple people with stage 4 cancer without any additional treatment, only receive prayer, go back to the doctors, and then they tell them there's no trace in your body of cancer whatsoever. And we have all the medical scans that show it. I don't know what to do with that. I mean, as a secularly educated former atheist, those things mess with my mind. But all I know is when you yield and you say, okay, Jesus, I believe you're still healing, sometimes he does. And so I just want to encourage somebody. And I think this film, we're not trying to, this is not charismania. We're not trying to sensationalize it. But what we are saying is it's okay to believe for healing again. And it's okay Christ still wants to heal people today, just like he did 2,000 years ago.
Well, that is incredible. The film is The Domino Revival. It hits theaters October 24th. Mike Signorelli, appreciate your time.
Thanks so much. I can't wait.
The Domino Revival hits theaters nationwide October 24th. You can head on over to MikeSignorelli.com for tickets and more information. Coming up next, we're going to talk with a high school football coach who was fired for praying on the field. His case, it went all the way to the Supreme Court. We'll be back with that conversation and more in just a moment. This is Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Our next segment explores a high school football coach's quest to seek God at the 50-yard line. Joe Kennedy took his prayer battle all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and as you may know, he won. He's here to join us to explain why he fought so hard and why he recently decided to resign from the very position that he successfully won back. Here is Joe Kennedy. So Joe Kennedy, you have had an eventful few days, in fact, an eventful few years. Obviously, your Supreme Court case has continued to be in the headlines. We're more than a year out from that landmark verdict allowing you to pray on the 50-yard line. You recently, last Friday, went back out on the field as an assistant coach. You have since decided to resign from that position. Can you tell us why?
I could come up with a whole bunch of reasons. It just seemed like the right time. We have some problems, health problems in my wife's family here in Florida. So that's one of the big deciding factors. Also, it seemed like the right thing to do. I knew the school really didn't want me there. They made it abundantly clear. So I think this is best for all, that I just end on a high note and, kind of try to take that high road and just retire on my own terms instead of anybody else's.
Yeah, no. And I think the point here is that what you fought for was something that was pretty simple: to be able to pray after a game on the 50-yard line. The fact that it took 8 years to get there, I think is incredible on so many levels. You also have a number of other things that we're going to talk about in a moment here that are happening that are exciting for you. But how did the community react? Because obviously this has been an issue. You mentioned the school probably didn't want you there, the district, after they fought and fought and fought. But how did people react to you being able to go back there on Friday and pray?
Well, we didn't have a single protester, that's what most of my anxiety was about, that it would become distracting for the football team. But the community showed up, and I don't know, we had probably three times as many people as a normal football game. So the numbers weren't extremely huge. It was the right size. And the game was so good that I think everybody forgot about me and they were focused on the game, and they saw just a spectacular show of what our Bremerton Knights can do. So it was a great, awesome event for the community. I have no regrets whatsoever with it.
When you talk to people who are progressives or people who have different views about the First Amendment that I don't always understand myself, they'll act as though somehow your victory was taking away people's rights or impeding people's rights. When you hear people talk about this, or that it was just so horrible, this victory, how do you respond to that? Because it seems like your victory expands people's rights.
That's the greatest thing about America, is that we have the shortest memories. And I don't know what it was 50 years ago with the Lemon case, and we kicked God out of our public schools. Well, everybody assumed that that's what the law is, and that's the way things have always been. In the past 50 years, we just been under the assumption that you cannot have, prayer in school. You can't have any kind of religion in the public square. But that's absolutely 100% wrong. And that's part of the fight, was to get that corrected for all Americans. And people have more freedom now than they have in the past 50 years. So the people that don't understand and think that I did something wrong, they just need to take a history lesson, and they need to learn what it is. And also, free speech is something that's great in America, and I fought to defend that, and I will stand up for everybody's right, even if they don't agree with me and they're protesting me.
As always, Coach Kennedy, appreciate your time with us.
Thank you so much. You guys be blessed.
It should be noted that the attorneys for Kennedy have said that the Bremerton School District, where he coached, wasn't exactly welcoming upon his return to the field. You can read more about those claims and more over at CBN News and FaithWire. And we'll be back in just a moment with more Newsmakers here on the CBN News Channel. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Now, for our final segment, we're going to explore an important question. Despite victories like what we saw with Kennedy, is religious liberty in America in danger? Jeremy Dice, Senior Counsel for First Liberty, offers a candid assessment not only of where we are right now, but of what's to come. Let's welcome Jeremy to the show. Jeremy, thanks for joining me today. I want to dive into religious liberty, religious freedom. We are watching right now a number of countries around the world in the West that are dealing with this religious freedom issue. In Finland, you have a member of parliament who is up on charges over sharing a Bible verse about homosexuality. You have a guy in Malta who is dealing with sharing his testimony on television. And as a result of that, he's been brought up on charges. The point is you have a number of people dealing with sharing basic Christian viewpoints and facing repercussions for that. You look at America and where we are right now here. What risk do we have in this country of seeing people end up in the same sorts of predicaments?
Well, I really hope that risk is low, but I can't say that it is zero because there's always forces that want to restrict our religious liberty for reasons I don't quite understand. In fact, that's the very reason why the Founding Fathers put the First Amendment in place to begin with, because they knew that if not individuals, then certainly governments throughout world history have been those that have acted to restrain people's religious liberty, their right to worship God according to the dictates of their conscience, whether that's in a formal house of worship or within their own homes or within the organizations that they form or anywhere else in the public square for that matter. And so the Founding Fathers were very keen on making sure that the American experiment would be one that respected religious liberty and made it a very robust part of our national experience and our experiment in freedom. And so for the last 200 plus years, we've been living in a country that has respected religious liberty. But I can't say that risk is zero because of all the work that we do on a day in and day out basis. I mean, it's not too far away from what's being talked about or what you talked about there in the run-in that we've had pastors that hold bivocational jobs that were fired from their day job because of something they said on Sunday morning from the pulpit. We've had employees who disagree with their woke corporation and find themselves excused from the company. They were fired from their company for daring to hold a difference of opinion. Look, we just went to the Supreme Court on behalf of an employee who just simply wanted the ability to not work on Sundays, to respect the Sabbath as he's compelled to do, and was fired for his job there after going through 8 different rounds of discipline. So, I mean, the reality is that people of faith are facing a constant barrage of religious attacks, questions about their faith and whether they're welcomed in the workplace or the public square. And we didn't even begin to talk about Coach Joe Kennedy, who had to spend 8 years fighting to get his job back for doing what? For taking a knee in silent prayer at a 50-yard line of a high school football field. I mean, if you can be fired over taking a knee for 15 to 30 seconds in silent prayer in the United States of America, can you really argue that there is no risk to us going down the path that these other nations have experienced? I'm grateful that we have a First Amendment. We have got other laws in place that protect our religious freedom. But it falls to you and I to make sure we're maintaining our vigilance to preserve these freedoms going forward for our next generations.
My final question for you, because this is incredibly helpful to hear you sort of guide us through this. It is an interesting juxtaposition to look at Finland and the UK and Malta and all of these other places and to see where religious liberty appears to be going there. And to look here where we have a lot of pushback on religious liberty. We have these issues as you've detailed, but at the same time, there have been a number of victories from Coach Kennedy down the line, the postal worker down the line. When you look at where we are right now, and we have to be cautious when we do this because we don't have a crystal ball, but what would you say you think is going to happen on this front moving forward in the near future here in America?
Well, I think I can say with some confidence that we are currently winning the cause of religious liberty. You mentioned Coach Kennedy. That was a wonderful victory that has unlocked a key precedent that will protect people of faith and religious organizations all over the country to be able to access public spaces to engage in a religious expression without that ominous threat of what we used to know as the Lemon Test. That's gone. And so there is now we're experiencing a freedom that you and I have never known in our lifetimes. That law was as old as you and I both. And so that law is gone, and people of faith are much more free now to access their faith in the public square. You mentioned Gerald Groff, the postal worker. Again, another huge victory for employees. That's not only going to protect people like Gerald Groff who want to honor the Sabbath by keeping it holy, but It's also going to work for employees like our flight attendants in Alaska Airlines who are fired for expressing a difference of opinion from their employer. It gives people a fighting chance in the workplace and requires everyone from the boardroom to the mailroom to work together to accommodate religious people in the workplace. And so those are just two small examples that I could go through right now. There's a lot more behind them. And then there's a lot of cases that are lined up right now that are set to expand that religious liberty. So again, I want your listeners to understand we're winning these cases. It's not the cases that we're currently litigating that I worry about. What I worry about when it comes to religious liberty in our country are those people who said, you know what, the school said I couldn't operate a Christian club on my campus, even though there's a chess club in my campus in the public school. And they decide not to do anything about it. I can't help that religious freedom if they don't call us for it, or if there's a church somewhere that has been pushed around by zoning laws in their neighborhood because they really don't want that church who cares for the homeless and the widows and the orphans in their backyard to be operating in the pristine downtown of their local community. And so they've zoned them out of that community. They never call me because they want to turn the other cheek. Well, I can't preserve religious freedom if you don't call us to let us help you out. And we could talk about the military and the public square and within the marketplace and in our jobs and our schools all over again, all the threats that are out there. Look, it doesn't take a whole lot to stand up for your religious freedom. If they can use Joe Kennedy to stand up for your religious freedom, certainly you and I are capable of doing that as well. This country belongs to you and me. The guarantees of the First Amendment belong to you and me and the organizations that we formed to propel our faith forward. It's up to you and I to steward those privileges better than anyone else has in human history. And I'm guaranteeing you this, if you do, the lion's share of the time, more than 9 out of 10 times, we're going to win those cases and we're going to be a more free country because of it.
Well, that is a great place for us to end, encouraging people to stand up for their rights, defend their First Amendment freedoms. Jeremy, appreciate your time as always.
Thanks, Billy.
Dice certainly makes a powerful point when he speaks about Americans needing to stand up and be committed to fighting for religious liberty. We'll be right back with more in just a moment. This is Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel. It's there that you'll find the full interviews that you saw on today's show. We're looking forward to seeing you again here next week.